Welcome to a new Webflow GSAP tutorial. My name is Jonas Arleit and I'm the founder of Formburg, a platform where you can learn Webflow professionally through structured courses and tutorials in both German and English. In today's video, we are taking a closer look at the new GSAP Ease Visualizer, and we will use it to build this stage-like animation here for a fictional contact page. What makes this setup especially interesting is how the elements animate into a 3D space while also using an elastic bounce back ease. And that combination creates a much more lively and dynamic feel. And you can see this kind of motion more and more in modern interfaces, for example in Apple's new Glass style UI direction, where animations feel softer, more physical and slightly bouncy. If you are already part of my Webflow GSAP Interaction Masterclass, you can simply copy this animation setup and use it directly in your client project. And for everyone else, I will walk you through the entire process now, step by step, so we can learn exactly how to build something like this from scratch. I started by creating this context stage wrapper div element, and this one is set to flexbox vertically and then align all the child elements to the top center, so we have them in the middle. I set this one to position relative. Do we need the position relative here? No, we don't need it. We can delete this one. And then I gave it a container type inline size. That means the title here inside can have the unit container query width as a font size. That means it's growing like a VW unit, but it stops growing when this container large maximum width here is reached. So here it stops growing, but when it's getting smaller, it just scales down. And that's exactly what I want here for this graphic. And besides the font size, the title here also has a 3D and 2D transform child perspective, because later in the GSAP animation, we want to use the split text functionality. That means that GSAP is splitting each letter of this title in its own div element. But this will give us the possibility to move each element inside in its 3D environment. And then also use a backface visibility hidden, and also two custom properties. One is will change transform. This is for a better performance, and transform style preserve 3D. Next I place in our image wrapper element, and currently it has only one media element, and this one is a background video. But you can also use a normal image here inside. And the image wrapper is also set to flexbox and then center all the child elements, so we can have multiple one side by side. Use some negative margin to bring it to overlap it a little bit to the title element, and then also give it some distance here to the copy element. I use a maximum width here for this wrapper, and if you make this one larger, then all the child elements are also growing. So if you have a larger title or longer title, then you can of course also make this media group a bit bigger. And this is working because the media element here has a width of 50%, so I use percentage units here. And if I paste in the two other media elements, let's unwrap this div element here, and you can bring them in the right order. So this one should be here on the left, and give this first one the same main class, but also a combo class. And this one gets the is first, and that means it's now getting a set index of 0. And this main image here in the center has a higher set index. And I also give this a slightly negative right margin to overlap it here a bit to the main image. And also the width here is set to 29%. So it's also growing if you make the wrapper element here larger, and that's exactly what we want. Then for the rotation, you can go down here to the 2D, 3D transform and click the plus sign and then just choose the rotate. And in this case, the left side gets a -5 degrees in the Z axis. And then the right one, let's give it a combo class of is last. And it's exactly the same, but just with +5 degrees. But the overlap is here on the left side. And because this center image should now be closer to the viewer, we can give it a little bit more realism. I don't give this media element here directly a box shadow, because then we can later animate also the shadow and bring it in a little bit later than the normal video element. So let's create a div element here for the shadow, and we can use the main stage image class here as for our base, but let's duplicate this one. make this one a position absolute and give it a Z index of 1. So it's right behind our main image, which has the Z index of 2. And because we want the shadow to be a little bit behind our image, we can reduce the width here to maybe 47%. Let's remove the hide auto. Let's leave the custom ratio here. Let's also remove the fit cover. We can now add our box shadow. Let's give it a free rem in the Y distance, and then the blur is maybe 3.5 or 3.2 rem. So it's getting a little bit more depth here for this stage. Let's now create the animation. So we go to interactions. Let's switch to the version here GSAP, and then we can integrate or create a page load animation. In this case, let's name this properly. And inside of our trigger, we can leave everything like it is. And then we can add a new action step here. In this case, it's animating a custom one. We name this one title, but before we can animate the title, let's remove or reduce the opacity of those two elements so we don't have them in our way. So let's double click on the timeline, click the stage image wrapper element. Let's switch this one to element and then back to class. So it's inserting the class here automatically, and then we can reduce the opacity for now. And let's also do the same here for this contact stage copy element. So let's go back to element and then class. So both of them are now not visible until we have the title animation here done. And then for the title, let's make sure that it's also using the stage title class here inside of our target. So it's right now the stage wrapper, which is wrong. So contact stage title is down here. And we want to animate this element in 2 seconds. And then split all the letters here by letter, and then also use a mask. No, we don't need a mask here, but we want to use a stagger effect. That means that we want to animate every one of these letters in the same way, but give them a slight delay in between the animations. So let's use maybe 50 milliseconds here for now. And for the properties, we definitely need the opacity, the move X direction. We can remove this one. We use the scale, and then let's add some other properties, the scale in the Z direction, and then also rotate. Maybe let's add them and the perspective and the origin. That means we can now toggle the from state here. Then we can also add the to state manually. That's sometimes better when you animate in 3D space. Normally you can toggle them off and then it's animating to the state which we are seeing right now. But in this case, I type in the numbers here as well. And if I increase the number here, it should now look like the element is moving the letters more flat, like to the ground. But it doesn't look really realistic. And I struggle to figure out what the problem is here, because we use the 3D perspective here on our stage title element. And the problem is, if I switch here to the line, to line, then it's now using the 3D environment more properly. You see, it's now way more realistic. So it has some problems if you switch to a letter, because now Webflow is using div wrapper element on each of these letters or around. So the C here has its own div element, also the O. And then you can see here the GSAP split word div element is also created right inside of our actual context stage title element. And that means we gave this one a 3D perspective, but actually this element should also have the 3D perspective. And that's currently not the case. And that's why we also have to integrate a little bit of a custom CSS code, then make it visible for you. And inside here, you can see I target the context stage title element, so this one, and then look for the GSAP split word element, which is this one Webflow is creating here. And then I basically give this one the same 3D perspective settings we use here on our actual stage title element. Even if I still use the letter split text here, it's now looking way more realistic. So let's bring this one from 70 to 0. And now you see they are almost flat. So let's increase them, but let's go in this direction. I think this looks way cooler. Maybe 78. And then it's going from here all the way back to its normal position. Let's bring this to maybe 89 so we can see it a little bit. You see here at the origin, we can actually decide which direction they should be coming from. And for my animation, I found that the bottom center part was exactly what I was looking for. Then we can scale them as well, maybe from 0.2 back to 1. So it's going a little bit larger. Then we can also use a skew in the Y, and this is a pretty interesting one. Make this one maybe 20. You also need a 2 state, which is 0. You see they are also getting rotated around their own axis. And this is obviously a lot of playing around with the settings to just figure out what looks cool. And we can also add the move in the Y direction, maybe 4 rem, and then back to the 0 position. And then as a last step, we can also use the scale in a Z direction. That means I think the letters are coming closer to the viewer. So if we insert a 15 here, or let's make this number bigger, then you see it's coming a little bit closer to us. So this is just a small little detail. The animation now looks pretty boring, and that means that the main effect here is the right easing. And in our case, we now want these Apple-like bubble effects within the new glass UI animations. And you can create an easing like that with the new easing or custom easings here. And if you scroll down, you see this elastic effect. And if you make the preview here, you can already see the bounce back and forth pretty strong. But if you reduce the amplitude now to around maybe 0.6, it's now not so strong. But if we go now and play this one here, it's now a pretty nice effect here for the letters. And maybe we could also add opacity here for the animation. Let's go from 0 to 100%. They are definitely not visible at the beginning, and now they are fading in pretty fast, and that looks cool. And then next we want to animate the media elements. So let's remove this action step so we can make them visible here again. And then I choose one of the media elements here, make a double click in the timeline. Let's make sure that the target here is contact stage image. So it should be the main class of them. So not with the combo class. And then we can give it the same duration of 2 seconds. Let's maybe start the animation here with a little bit of a delay. And then for the easing, we can use the same elastic effect here with an amplitude of maybe 0.7 or 0.6. I don't know what it was. Maybe this is enough. And then we can animate them in the Y direction. So let's move them down. We don't need the move Y and X here because if you use this one, it's a percentage value, and that means it's now orienting in the size of this element. So if the size is bigger, the distance would also be bigger. So we can bring them down maybe 60%. And then we also want to rotate them in the 3D environment. So let's bring in the rotate X and Y and also the origin. We use the same origin here at the bottom in the center, and then rotate them in the Y direction, but this way. And you can see it's now doing this with all of them together, but we actually also want to have a stagger effect here. So let's add an offset time, in this case maybe 75 milliseconds, and it should now animate all of them one after another, but of course we also need 2 states here. And now they should be animated here from the bottom back to the top and also get this nice little bounce effect. Let's also use opacity of 0 and then back to 100%, and then maybe also scale them down a little bit, then back to 1, so they start a little bit smaller. Then you can see here in the background there's our shadow div element is already there, and that means we also need a separate action step here for our shadow element. Could be like the same start. Maybe, yeah, let's have a look. Let's change the target here to this context stage image shadow class. And then we animate just the opacity here from 0 back to 100%, or let's toggle the 2 off so it's coming from 0 and then it's going where it's designed in the Webflow designer. And let's also use the scale of 0 and then it's going back to the normal state. Let's name this one shadow. And then, let's maybe start them a little bit later. And this one could have just a duration of maybe 1 second is enough. And also use a power 1 out here for the easing. So it should not start here, but now it should get visible. Yeah, Now it's getting visible here when the main image is bouncing to the bottom. And I think this looks better, yeah. And lastly, we have our copy text, which should be pretty straightforward. So let's double click here in the timeline. Let's also switch the target here to contact stage copy, which is already integrated because I selected this element. And then we animate just the from state. So let's toggle off the to state from an opacity of 0. And let's also move the elements here. Maybe 6 rem is enough. And then it's going back to this position, but also with a stagger offset time of 50 or also 75 milliseconds. And let's split them by line. Use a ease out, maybe power 3, a little bit faster at the beginning. Let's toggle the replay here on so we can see it again and again, and fine tune. Maybe it could be a little bit faster, and also start later. So when the images are there, so we have no overlap here. So it's feeling more in the direction of the hard bounce back here of these elements. I also forgot something important here for the title element, because you see right now it's starting the animation here from the left, but you can easily change this to also start from the center. If you go here to the stagger effect and then the start from the center here, can also choose random, which is also nice maybe for this type of easing. But center is way more interesting here because also the images are coming in from the center.